Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar and thank you for investing the time, which I hope you find both interesting and informative. Partners in IT are a leading IT service transformation company based in the UK. Formed in 1996, we specialise in the design, implementation and support of IT service management solutions based on our own IPR and solutions from HP, ServiceNow and Mirror 42's key performance indicator dashboards. And now on to the agenda. For today's webinar, I've allowed approximately 5 minutes for the government ICT strategy and VisionIT slides, 45 minutes for the demonstration and 10 minutes or so for the questions, though this has a habit of overrunning, which isn't a problem for us, but if you need to get onto another meeting, then by all means feel free to leave the webinar. With only 5 minutes to go through the slides, it's not my intention to run through the entire document, but to highlight aspects where VisionIT addresses two of the statements currently on your screen. Spend money better rather than spending more, and where appropriate, government will purchase open source solutions. By the way, if you don't have a copy of the document, you can download it from our webinar invitation that I originally sent out. So what events have driven the development of VisionIT? Over recent years, partners in IT have seen a considerable reduction in the purchase of software and maintenance renewals due to high cost of ownership, budget restrictions and a healthy dislike for taking on large, high-risk implementation projects. Taking this into account, there are a number of ways to spend money better. VisionIT gives you the ability to pay for managing what matters rather than paying to manage everything. And as it's delivered as a service, it ultimately frees up staff to concentrate on more important issues rather than having to spend time associated with deploying agents, maintaining the application, or refreshing hardware. So how has VisionIT been able to achieve this? As Andy will demonstrate, VisionIT monitors your servers, network devices, and applications. Unlike many monitoring tools, VisionIT is charged by the device rather than CPU size, cores, or value units, so you don't have to waste time speccing each individual server in order to get a price. It's also important to remember that each agent can monitor the hardware, operating system, and application if needs be, so you don't need to purchase or deploy multiple agents onto your servers, thus saving you more money. Partners in IT have invested more than 18 months to create a robust, highly efficient and tested service which is based on open source software. This service will considerably reduce the costs associated with proactive monitoring whilst helping your organization retain or hopefully exceed customer expectations. And the last bullet point on this slide refers to ITIL. VisionIT also nicely ties in with ITIL's event management process, which is one of the main activities of service operations. Here's a high-level view of capabilities. If you would like further clarification on any of these features, please feel free to pose a question via the chat box, which should be on your screen. Questions and answers will be aired to all attendees at the end of the demonstration. Once again, a reference to manage what matters. You don't need to monitor every metric on every server. Select the important golden metrics and once again save money and time. Also, we're not suggesting a rip and replace policy. If you're already investing in a manager of managers or a help desk, we can feed into them and happily coincide with servers running the more expensive monitoring solutions if you choose. That brings me an end to my presentation. I'd like to thank you for joining this morning's webinar and look forward to taking questions at the end of the demonstration. I'll now hand over to our principal consultant, Andy Lark.
Good morning. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'm going to be running through the demonstration for VisionIT service. Here we have the login page. This is a role-based system, so each user will have their own login potentially, providing them with their own views. I'm going to log in here as an ordinary user for today's demonstration. And instantly, once we're logged in, we can now see the home page, which is the status view. This page hopefully gives us a very clear, concise and easy to see status of our whole infrastructure. And so it shows us here very quickly that we've got 4 pretty much green dials showing and indicating that pretty much everything is fine. There are some bits and pieces that we can look at, and we'll look at those in a second. What I'm going to do for this demonstration is actually create an artificial problem. So while I'm explaining to you, I'm going to disable a file transfer service on one of our demonstration systems, and then switch back to the status page. So here, as we can see, we have down the left-hand side an Explorer-style view. This is basically host grouping, and under the Services tab, a service grouping, and then a search tool that we can use should we need to find particular services or hosts quickly. On the right-hand side, we have these 4 dials. The top left-hand dial is indicating the status of the host groups. So here we can see that there are 5 groups, and all 5 of those groups are in actual fact up. Although we have some indications on the left-hand side, there are hosts, all of the hosts within those groups are actually up and running. On the right-hand side, we have an indication for the actual hosts themselves, and on this demonstration system we can see there are 17 hosts, and again reflecting the same value, all 17 hosts are in fact up. Now we can see that there's an alert come in while I explain to you the bottom 2 dials. The bottom left is the service groups, so if I select the Services tab on the left-hand side, we can see that there are in fact 6 service groups indicated by the number 6 at the bottom. Those groups, although we have a problem in one of those, all 6 groups, the hosts are up, so again indicating that we don't actually have any host failures, but there is something within one of these groups which is service affecting, and as we can see from the left-hand side, it's actually my BAC production environment which has something affecting it, and if I hover over there I can see there are 17 services within there, and one of those is troubled, so one of those has a problem. And last but definitely not least, the bottom right-hand dial, that is the actual individual service checks that we are performing across our estate. We have 135 checks in process, 132 of those are okay. One is showing that it's unknown at this precise point in time. One is critical but scheduled, which is the orange color. And if I switch back to the hosts tab, we can see that that's under the infrastructure environment. And that basically means that although this is an outage, it's a scheduled outage. So we've put this particular environment, this particular host into scheduled downtime so that it doesn't notify me. So when there's a problem with this particular item, when I take it down, I don't get loads of emails or notification to tell me that, because this is a scheduled and planned outage. And then the one that I've just created right at the top, the critical scheduled, unscheduled error. I'm going to show you 2 methods for finding out what the actual problem is. First of all, we'll work through from the left-hand side, from the Explorer style. So we can see that the Solaris servers is the one indicating a critical problem within our host groups. So I'll select the Solaris servers group, and that will expand for me, showing me a list of all the hosts underneath that group. In this particular demonstration server, we only have one Solaris box, which is Train 02, which is the one that I've created the fault on. The right-hand side has now changed to reflect the fact that we're looking at just the Solaris servers, because that's the host group that I selected. And we can see that all the Solaris servers are up. They have a host availability of 100% here. But there's a service problem within there, so we have a 93% availability of the services, and that's because I've taken the FTP service down. And those figures are reflected within the green dial, so we can very easily see here that the hosts, again, obviously there's only one, but it's actually up. and on the right-hand dial, we're running 15 service checks on this particular host. 14 are up, and 1 has a problem. So let's continue to drill down. If I select Train02 as a server, that will now expand the particular host that we're looking at and show me all the individual service checks that we're performing. And instantly you can see the FTP Alive service check at the top there is the one that's showing the error. And again, the right-hand side has changed to reflect the fact that we're looking at a particular host. So the top left-hand view is mentioning Train02 specifically, and again that the host is up. So we know that the host is actually still functioning. It's just a problem on that host. It's been up and running for 26 days, 8 hours, 17 minutes, etc. It tells me here how many hosts, how many groups it's within, etc. And then there's some status information in terms of the IP address, the round trip times, how many packets are lost, whether there's any particular issues that are acknowledged at the moment, whether this is within downtime, so again, whether this is scheduled or unscheduled, notifications, if there are any, when the next check is due to run, and so forth. On the right-hand side, again, we have this dial indicating how bad the problem is. So, I can see out of the 15 checks I'm running, 14 of those okay, and it's only one of those that's the problem. And from the left-hand side, I can very obviously see that it's the FTP service that's the problem. Now I've drilled down as far as an individual host, I can actually see for those service checks that we're running, for instance, the FTP Alive, CPU, for instance, disk space, memory, anything that comes back with a value that we can record and collect, we can see these graphs in the middle here showing us the response times for, in this case, FTP is open by default. We can look at, for instance, the CPU utilization. I can expand that one, and we can see the warning and critical thresholds on there, or maybe a disk space graph as well. Further down now on this particular host, it's going to show me a list of all the service checks that we're performing. And again, the most critical problem will be brought straight to the top. So there's a total of 15 checks, and the service check that's given me the problem here is the FTP Alive, so that's being brought straight to the top. It's telling me the duration that it's been in this particular state. So the FTP Alive problem has been down for 6 minutes. The error message that we're getting, so when it tries to check the FTP status, we're getting a connection refused. And then here also whether it's been acknowledged, and the option, a link for me to acknowledge it if I want at this point. And then right at the bottom, if there are any comments around this particular host, so if somebody's actually working on it, if there's some planned work, or this is a potentially unstable issue, or somebody might have put a comment on here saying watch out for FTP, it crashes every so often. So if I scroll back up to the top, I can still drill down yet further, because we're only on the host level at the moment, so I can now select the actual service check itself, which is the FTP Alive service check. And the status information here is telling me that this is an unscheduled critical outage. It's now been 7 minutes, and I think it's about time somebody fixed this one. We've got some comments that we can add on, and again some more status information, so the actual error message, and the option to acknowledge. So here I'm going to click on to actually acknowledge the problem, and I'm going to put down there that I'm actually aware of the problem. So that will acknowledge it and turn off any automated acknowledgement. So if I've had any automated notifications, so if I've already had a notification to say that the FTP service has failed, acknowledging it will stop it sending out any repeat notifications to keep hounding me until I accept this particular problem. Again, we have the graph information at the bottom with the option for us to look at today's information, the last 24 hours, 48 hours, 5 days, 7 days, etc. So we can look back to see what the performance of this particular service check has been like, and have we had any previous problems in the past, etc. Okay, so that's one method to drill down. That's done for this demonstration purposes, obviously not necessarily the quickest way that you might want to drill down. So if I switch quickly back to the top again, and we're looking at the entire network, what I can do is, as you can see, some of these graphs where it's telling me that I have unscheduled critical events that need looking at, these are actually links that I can click on. So where it says on the right-hand side, one critical unscheduled service check, if I select that, it lists out all the problems that are unscheduled and critical, and I can either drill down to train 02 here, which is down to the host level, or if I select the FTP Alive, which is the service check that's failing, I literally drill straight down to the bottom, and I can now instantly see connection refused. Yes, it's been acknowledged that Andy's aware of this problem, etc. So I don't need to drill down through group by group to find the actual problem. Also, I can select the Services tab, and I can instantly see out of my important business services that the BAC production environment is the one that's affected. And if I expand that, I can see straight away that it's the FTP Alive on train 02, as opposed to maybe disk partitions on a different box, or my SAN storage, or whatever hosts and environment is built up into my BAC service. I can instantly see that that's the one that's causing me the problem, and that's the one that's affecting my service. Okay, we've seen here that this is the home page and the main status view, and is very efficient for helping us diagnose problems. Each of these small white rectangular windows is actually a portlet. This is a portal-based environment, so as I logged in with my particular user ID, I'm able to see the various information within this portal. But each of these portlets can be picked up and customized into my own tailored portal. So on the top left-hand side, I'm going to select the My Portal view. And this area allows me to configure and build my own pages, so the things that are specific of interest to me. So I have a Configure tab here, where I can pick up the particular pages and create my own, which we'll see in a minute. I have already created one called My Servers. So we can see various things that I've picked up. So this was the service list for my BAC production environment, because that's one of my critical business services, and instantly I can see it again at the top, that it's the FTP Alive service that's affecting that service. I'm very interested in particular statistics on this OM8 development server. So again, that's a graph that was what I chose, and also some service information on another box here. So if I go back to the Configure tab, just to very quickly show you how easy this is, if I wish to create another page, we just literally type the name of the page, click on Save, and you can straight away see at the top there's another page called Andy, and I wish to add some information on that. This is currently a one-column page. I can make it 2 columns, 3 columns, etc., and add in the relevant information. So here I'm going to add in the service summary, add that on, and we'll add another one so that we can see that the page, make the page a little bit more interesting. So if I just literally, this is real time, so if I switch straight back to my Andy page, there are the 2 service summary graphs. By default, they have selected to look at the entire network, but if I look right over on the right-hand side, there's a little edit button. So I click on Edit, and I can change what this service summary graph is viewing. So currently by default it's on entire network. I could select a host, service group, or host group. So if I select host group for this time, and let's choose our Windows server. So as soon as I start to type, it will give me a list of those that fit the bill, and we've got Windows servers here, and I can save that. So now this particular service summary is viewing just the Windows servers, and we can see there the amount of service checks, 44, 43 are okay, and we have 1 which is in an unknown state. I can do the same for the second graph. I'll just edit that, change that to service group, and this time we'll go for our BAC production one again. Save that, and now we're viewing the service status of the BAC production environment. So service 17 checks, 16 are okay, and we know we have the problem with the FTP service on there. So you can see very quickly we can build up a specific view that may want to be a particular account manager who's responsible for a certain type of service, business service. It could be that the service desk, help desk people would like to see something on a plasma screen up on the wall. It can be used for any number of different checks. We can also have a page in here which links through to maybe an intranet page or through to a web-based service desk, for instance. So we can incorporate a help desk check as well. Okay, so here we have the Partners in IT as our home page, and obviously we can edit that, and we could change that to any particular link. So let's say it's very important to us that we have the BBC News website. We could literally change and have the BBC News website as one of our pages within my portal. Okay, so we've seen the status page, a pre-configured, easy to use home page which gives us a status of our infrastructure. We've seen the My Portal, which allows us to customize those and pick up the individual portlets and create our own view for different reasons. I'm now going to move on to looking at some of the reports that we have available. Two main different types of reports. There are the performance reports and the statistic type reports for events and outages, etc. I'm going to start with the second category, which is our alerts, notifications and outages. So if I select the alerts tab, we're presented with the parameters that we want for this particular report. Alerts are basically any kind of event that's happened within the system. So for instance, our FTP service failing, that would create an alert. If a disk threshold was breached or a CPU got too busy, each of those would create an alert within the system. It would then be necessarily configured that we might have a notification against some of those, maybe only against the critical ones, possibly also the warning threshold as well. But we may have a notification either to our help desk environment or possibly to our support team, etc. And that would be available under the notifications tab. And then outages are literally, as you would expect, when a host fails or a service fails, we can look at the availability of those. So let's look at what these reports can do for us. So if we select March the 1st, for instance, as a good time range, up to July the 6th, that's as good as any. We'll go for a monthly as opposed to a weekly report. Other boxes here, we have tables and totals, etc. Let's just generate the report and see what we want to keep out of that. So instantly we can see the report. There's the table at the top with lots of figures on it. It may be that I don't like figures and I just prefer to see the graphs, so I can unselect the table, generate the report again, and that table will be gone. So here we have for the alerts in this particular case, we have alarms, warnings and notifications across the March, April, May, June, July period. So we can see the amount of notifications which are being sent out and so forth. If we scroll down, we can see these alarms by host grouping. So it's quite important that we group our hosts sensibly. They can be grouped in any way. It's entirely up to each individual customer, whether those might be grouped geographically or functionally, by support team, by operating system, etc. They can be grouped in any way, and hosts, in fact, can be in multiple groups. So it's important to get the groupings correct. But we can see here the Solaris group has generated the most alarms, then the Windows infrastructure, Linux environment, etc. We can see the number of alarms by host. So very obviously here, Train 02, which is the one we use for demonstration purposes, sitting nicely at the top. That's our most troublesome host out of the top 10. We can see by host and service. So again, Trainer 2 and the FTP Alive service, obviously sitting at the top. And last but not least, alarms by individual service. So it's the FTP service which is giving me the most trouble across my environment. That's the alerts. We'll quickly look at notifications. Again, we can do the same kind of thing. We can select a particular month range, whether we want weekly, monthly graphs, etc. Again, we can show our notifications by host group, individual hosts, host and service, etc. But also in this case we have by contact group and by contact and the notification method. So if I generate this report, very similar view as you can see. We have the table at the top and then the notifications by host group here. So you can see Windows, Solaris. We can see notifications by host right the way down to the bottom, and here we see by contact group. So we can see individual groups. So this might be support teams, that might be our northern team, southern team, or Windows team and Unix team, for instance, or the network team and the server team. Any way you want to group your particular users and support people. Right the way down at the bottom here, we even have the individual contacts, and ServiceNow here being the where it would have logged the incident on the service desk. So we can see who's getting the most notifications through from this system. Okay. If we want to, we can expand these and make the figures reflect more detail. So here we've expanded the total details by host group, and these can literally be cut and pasted into Excel, for instance, to make this view in a different way or export it into different applications, etc. And the outage is exactly the same. We also have some additional filtering on here, whereby we can filter for unscheduled and scheduled outages, so that if we don't want to report on problems that we obviously planned, then we can ignore those from our calculations on availability, etc. So let's look at the performance statistics. We have no graphs configured currently, so I'm going to create a new one for you. We now have the option here to select what it is we want to graph. Now, anything we've been looking at in terms of the graphs that we saw on the status page, again, that information is all available to me here. So here's my selection of hosts. We'll pick our Exchange server, for instance, and here are the checks that we are running on that. So I'd like to see the utilization on disk C. I'll add that to my graph. So at the top we have the graph items that we want to look at. I'm going to look at this for, let's say, the last 7 days. We can obviously do a date range if need be, in the same way as we have done with the previous graph. I'm not quite sure what else I want, so again I'm going to just click on graph my data for me, and instantly for the last 7 days here is the utilization on drive C for my Exchange server. Okay, that's all very good. We have the warning and the critical thresholds, but I actually wanted to compare that with one of my other servers. So if I go back to configure, I can add in another host. This time let's look for our OM8 server, and again disk C, we'll add that in. So now we have two variables that we're graphing, and literally I just need to click on graph performance. And now I have two graphs, one for each server. Again, still not quite what I was looking for. I wanted to see this on the same graph, so I can literally just go back to configure. This time, instead of consolidated by host, I want this all consolidated onto one graph. Change the value, click on regraph, and now I have a line here for our Exchange server and a blue line underneath for my OM8 server. And I can continue to change that as much as I want until I'm happy with it. I can even do this the reverse way around, whereby I can check on, these are all the service checks I'm running, and here is disk C. And these are all the hosts remaining that I'm checking drive C on. I can add those in. This is going to be a little bit messy because there's going to be too much information to see, but I can add those servers in as well. So just to show you the flexibility of how easy it is to add information to any particular graph. When I'm happy with the particular graph that I want, it's maybe a graph that I need to produce every week or every month, etc. for my boss. What I can do is literally click on Save View, give that graph a name. There we go, and save that. And you'll see over on the left-hand side here now under Views, I have one called Andy. So whenever I want to pull that graph back, I can just click on Andy, and there's my graph. And if I need to change it for last month's figures, if I didn't manage to get that one out, I can just click on Configure and go back and tweak it until I'm happy. So that's the reporting, all the information there that we should need. We'll move on to the next tab, which is the Views tab. Last but very definitely not least. Here we have different methods for looking at all the hosts and infrastructure information that we have. These can be built entirely according to the customer's design. So a fine example and very common example might be a network diagram. So here if I select the Birmingham network, for instance, we can already see, but just by hovering my mouse, there's 1 critical, 2 unknown, and 13 up objects. So I can select that map. And here's a diagram, in this particular case, been imported from a Visio diagram, and then basically livened up. Now what that means is that this was originally just a very flat Visio diagram that people could look at. But what we've done here is taken that diagram and then added the servers which we're monitoring. So here's our Lin Mail server, and we can see that that's up and running, and that the 4 service checks on there are running. If I scroll down, we can actually see our Train02 server, and if I hover over that again, I can see that Train02 is up, and it's been up for a while now. But also, again, the most critical problem has been brought to the top, which is the FTP Alive service, and that's a critical problem, and that the output is a connection refused. So I can see from my map instantly which devices are causing me a problem, and also what the problems are from there. An alternate option may be to have this viewed by cabinet. So my Birmingham data center, I could select here. Again, I can see that there's 1 critical and two objects which are up. If I select my Birmingham data center, I drill down 1 level. So this can be a multi-layered view. So I could drill down to a particular office or regional location, and then drill down again. And each time it's going to tell me an aggregated status of each layer. So here I can see that the 2 outside cabinets are fine, and if I hover over those, I can see the status of what's in those cabinets, each individual server. And obviously, right in the middle here, there's a cabinet which has something that's got a problem within it. I can instantly see again it's Train02, that the host is up, but there's 1 critical problem, so I can drill on that cabinet and go down to the cabinet view, and again I can see my individual servers within that cabinet, and also here we are as Train02 with the same view again, that's my FTP service which is causing me a problem. So these views can be built up. They are commonly used for plasma screens or just for the support team to have available. Everybody that has a login will be able to see these. And there's also the option for rotational pools. So if this is placed on a plasma screen within the help desk environment, for instance, it could rotate around 3, 4, 5 maps, etc., showing them maybe the respective business services, so my email service, my production, my accounting, my payroll services, and show me the status of those, so that instantly when the help desk operator receives a call, he's able to determine, okay, yes, there is a problem, we are aware of it, your email service may be a bit slow at the moment, I'll log your incident and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So it's very easy for them to be aware of the problems within the environment. So that's a very brief overview of the VisionIT service. There are obviously more functionalities. I haven't been able to demonstrate things like the application monitoring, etc. But hopefully that's given you a taster of what's available to be covered. I'm going to hand you back to Graham. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andy. What we'll be doing now is just going through the final slide and taking questions that have been put to us during the demonstration. I'll just bring up the slide deck that we were running a minute ago. In the meantime, Andy, one of the questions that we had was what security implications are there with regards to you hosting the service?
Okay. What we have, the VisionIT service is hosted in one of our data centers. That's a SAS 70 Tier 4 certified data center, so completely covered with 24/7 CCTV, entry-exit criteria for maintenance staff, etc. All the cabinets are locked, so it's a very high secure environment, redundant power supplies. It's run on a ESX high availability environment with nightly backups, etc. So it's a fully secure environment. We also run over a secure IPsec tunnel to the customer's environment, so that's encrypted as well. So there should be no problems regarding the security.
Thanks so much, Andy. Another question. What's the maximum number of nodes or devices that can be monitored?
Okay, we don't have a maximum limit. We've done various amounts of testing. We have customers running on one server with over 600 servers being monitored and their network infrastructure. The system is very scalable. It's extremely efficient in terms of CPU capabilities. The agent that we install onto the server environments is very low impact. We can scale the system, so should we ever reach a maximum that we're nowhere near identifying yet, we can have manager of manager types environments. We can also integrate with other tools. So if there are already existing tools in place monitoring certain other aspects that VisionIT isn't pointed at, then we can integrate either as a manager, element manager towards them, so filtering our events upwards towards them, or in fact we can be the manager of managers and accept events in from other monitoring tools as well.
So bear in mind that as this is a software as a service, we're actually pricing in the additional hardware that's required to manage your additional nodes. So if whether you're using 500 or 5,000 systems, we will price in the cost for hardware. That's one of the costs that we are taking away from yourselves. Another question that we've received is, how do you cater for different network vendors and their MIBs?
Okay, yeah, one thing I wasn't able to demonstrate today was the network management side of things. We're able to import any publicly available vendor's MIB. We already have some of the more standard and more obvious MIBs in place in our standard profiles for monitoring things like Cisco switches and routers and so forth. But we're able to import any publicly available MIB into Vision, and at that point we can then start to monitor and poll using the SNMP protocol any of the attributes available, and also then receive traps from those devices. For example, APC UPSs, we're able to poll things like the line-in voltage, the battery temperatures, etc., and then obviously receive a trap when maybe the line voltage fails and the device switches to battery power. We're able to receive alerts for that as well.
Thanks, Andy. Can the views be anything other than a Visio diagram, e.g. photographs, etc.?
Yes, indeed. The example I showed you there was obviously an imported Visio network diagram. The background image can be absolutely anything. It could be a photograph of a cabinet in a data center, for instance. We could overlay and liven up a photograph of a data center rack environment. It could be an atlas-style map of the world or a particular region, Europe, Asia-Pac, Americas, etc. We can also use the views to do service process modeling. So if there are a set of standard processes and steps that are gone through as part of a business service, we can monitor each of those steps. For example, an email being sent to say this particular device needs to be loaded into the warehouse for shipping, and then the person accepts that email, and then the part is loaded onto the van, and then it's marked as delivered, etc. So each of those processes we can flag up and have on a particular process map as well.
Thanks, Andy. Another question. Specific user-based dashboards, are they available?
In terms of the portal view, yes, those views are specific to each individual user account. So the user account, as I mentioned at the beginning, could be an individual or could be a team account. So if the support team wanted to see the same views, then you could create an account which is used by multiple personnel. But that portal can be tailored in any way, as we saw with different views. The dashboard can have intranet pages or service, web-based applications linked to it as well. Okay, thanks very much for that, Andy. What we'll be doing now is finishing off. What I would like to do is get in contact with each of you to get your feedbacks on the seminar, and also to see if there is anything that we can do with regards to moving the conversation on to maybe taking a closer look at VisionIT. I'd like to thank Andy for providing the demonstration. And should you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me at the contact details or listed on the screen in front of you now. Once again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out today, and wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Thanks very much. Bye.